The FIFA World Cup is only 1 week old and it has already given us goals, some shocks, viral fans, and yes, even a duck. So if you've not been watching the World Cup every match, don't worry, this is your weekly DeKoder wrap. The biggest, strangest, funniest, and the most interesting stories from the World Cup so far. Let's start with Canada. Now, Canada recorded their first World Cup victory ever this week, and the story becomes even better when you look at what happened just before kickoff. Just a day before the match against Qatar, questions were being asked about the form of Canada's biggest star, Jonathan David. The fans were worried and media was quite skeptical. Jonathan did not have the best form coming into the World Cup. So, how did he respond? He responded with a hat-trick. Canada demolished Qatar 6-0 in front of their home crowd. It was a statement performance from a team that has spent decades trying to establish itself on football's biggest stage. For Canadian football, this was more than just a group stage match. It was historic. The country's first ever FIFA World Cup win, achieved at home in front of their own fans and led by their biggest star under pressure. Now, next up, one of the most interesting results of the week. It gave us one of those historic commentary lines that we will remember for a long time. We have history in Houston. And history it was. The Democratic Republic of Congo denied Portugal a win, holding them to a 1-1 draw in their opening FIFA World Cup match. What looked like a routine group stage game suddenly became one of the most talked about matches of the week. Cristiano Ronaldo started the match as the oldest footballer ever to start a FIFA World Cup match. But after failing to convert against Congo, the conversation quickly began from celebration to a concern. So keep an eye out on Group K. It may very well become one of the most interesting groups of the World Cup. Now, next up, and staying with DR Congo, one of my favorite stories of this week didn't happen on the football field, but in the stands. If you watched the Democratic Republic of Congo match this week, you must have noticed Michel Nkuka Mboladinga, or as most people know him, Lumumba Bia. Now, Lumumba Bia is a fan, but is also part of their official delegation to the World Cup. This fan doesn't cheer, he doesn't shout, he doesn't say anything. In fact, he doesn't even move. So he stands still with one arm up in the air. At first, you might think he's just another passionate football fan, but there's a deeper story behind what he is doing. Lumumba Bia attends matches dressed up like Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo and one of the most important figures in the country's history. And that's what makes this World Cup so special. You tune in expecting goals, drama, upsets, but every now and then, you come across a story that reminds you that this tournament is much more than football. For Lumumba Bia, DR Congo isn't just about 90 minutes playing on the field. It represents the country's history, its struggles, its identity, and the pride on the biggest stage on this world. Long after people forget the scoreline between Portugal and Congo, many will still remember Lumumba Bia and Patrice Lumumba. And that's what this World Cup has really done, given people something to remember and read about, and something to learn from them. Now, talking of fans, not all fans are human. Meet Merlin, or as the internet knows him, Merlin the Duck. Now, Merlin has somehow become one of the biggest celebrities of the FIFA World Cup this week. And no, that's not a nickname of a footballer or a famous influencer. Merlin is quite literally a duck. Dressed in Mexico El-Tri jersey, Merlin spends most of his days wandering around Mexico City alongside his owner, selling water on the streets. But thanks to the World Cup, the ordinary duck has become quite an unlikely star. Videos of Merlin have gone viral on social media and fans are now lining up to take pictures with him. Some even seem more excited to meet Merlin than a few players. And honestly, that's one of the few things I love about the World Cup. Every 4 years, what is probably the biggest festival on the planet gives us strange, unexpected little stories that have nothing to do with tactics, formations, scorelines, and somehow become part of the tournament's identity. This year, Merlin the Duck is one of those stories, a small reminder that sometimes the most memorable stars of the World Cup aren't on the pitch at all. Now let's get back to football. One of the biggest results of the week came from England's 4-2 victory over Croatia. Now, if you're not a football fan, you might look at the scoreline and think, okay, England beat Croatia, what's the big deal? Well, for England fans, it was quite a big deal because 8 years ago, if you remember, at the 2018 World Cup, Croatia broke English hearts. England had reached semi-finals, the country was dreaming, its coming home was being sung everywhere, and then Croatia came from behind to a 2-1 victory to knock English team out. They have not forgotten that. So when these two teams met again this week, it wasn't just another group stage game. There was history behind them. There was baggage. The England didn't just win, they scored 4. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that England are definitely going to win the World Cup or that they're favourites. Football has a funny way of making people look foolish. But if there's one team that made the rest of the teams sit up, it was England. Because scoring against Croatia is one thing, but scoring 4, now that's quite a statement. The favourites have shown up, but they've not made it easy. Brazil couldn't get past Morocco. Portugal was frustrated by DR Congo. Spain were held by Cape Verde. Meanwhile, Canada scored 6 and England scored 4. And honestly, that's what I've enjoyed the most. The group stage often gets treated as the warm-up act before the knockouts begin. But for me, this is where World Cup has its personality. This is where the small teams get their chance to surprise everyone. This is where reputation isn't alone enough. And this is where stories begin. And that's exactly where we are right now. 1 week in, the World Cup has already given us upsets, unlikely heroes, viral fans, a famous duck, and results that nobody saw coming. Not a bad start. So what should we watch out for next week? Well, can Canada build on what's arguably the biggest result in their football history? Can Congo prove their draw against Portugal wasn't just one-off? And perhaps, most importantly, are the so-called giants finally going to control the tournament, or are the underdogs going to make their life uncomfortable? We'll find out soon, but 1 week in and the World Cup has already reminded us why billions of people stop everything that they're doing to watch this game. Not because of the scorelines, not because of the stories. A fan standing still in tribute to his country's history, a duck becoming a national celebrity, a country celebrating its first ever World Cup victory, and a few footballing giants being reminded that nothing comes easy on the world stage. But it's never just been about football. That's all for this week on World Cup Wrap on DeKoder. I'll see you next week.